Rack and roll, shadows of Centris. Holy shit, were you wrestling an octopus? Is the first thing Amadi says around a full belly laugh at the sight of Koa and the innumerable hickeys he's sporting. New wife. She's enthusiastic and the twins got swept up in the excitement, Koa says after a moment, and there's a snort from Reggie who's going over his notes on something. What you looking through? Just the details on the endless barrage. Making it's going to be a pain, but it's doable. A lot of finicky parts though. It'll take some serious effort. It's all the ammo that's going to be a bitch and a half. We can do it, but Jesus, the time it's gonna take. Did you get yours back? Koa asks. Technically no, but I helped pull it apart, put it back together, and I have a copy of all the lab notes as we put two more together. I can probably slap one together by myself with a half-decent workbench and only some exotic parts and tools, but you need a mountain's worth of RPGs to fully load it. Still worth it, just gonna take a while. Like restoring a vintage car, Koa says, and Reggie just smiles and nods. Speaking of cars, I got good news, lads, Amadi begins. Oh, Koa remarks, and Reggie snorts in amusement. Oh, shut up. I got funds released to us so we can buy ourselves personal transportation. Not too much, so we'll be going to a used dealership, but enough that we won't be trying to drag out a heap of rust and calling it a car, Amadi says, and there's a slight fist pump from Koa making him smirk. I'm going to be going for something that has a good amount of seating. I've got a lot of girls, and taking them to different spires might be fun. Not me. Each of my girls is either small enough to hang on to me, on top of being flight capable, or has a car of their own. So I'll get a bike and see just how loud and powerful I can make it before I'm dodging pot shots from pissed off citizens, Koa says with a smile and a gesture as if showing off such a bike. I'm gonna need a lot of space. Lydris are freaking gigantic. Also would leave me a lot of room to stash all kinds of tools and toys. So car, bike, and van then. Between the three of us, it's all but guaranteed we find a stash of drugs in the trunk or even a kidnapping victim, Amadi says with a smile. Awesome. It was always a dream of mine to be chased after by some drugged-up lunatics for some barely comprehensible bullshit. Reggie snipes and Amadi snorts in amusement. Let's go then, Koa says. Amadi's already planned out the route and leads them to Jumpin' Jenny's Junker Restoration Station. The gigantic owner of Jumpin' Jenny is somewhat overwhelming, and all three of the men resist drawing weapons as they allow the Brute Arcana to approach. The fact that she looks like a woman with an extra pair of arms and legs to be shaped like a spider rearing up is more than mildly freaky. There's a sort of inflated shape to each of her limbs that gives them an absurd amount of strength. The downside of this stupid level of strength is that if their otherwise extremely tough skin is pierced, they bleed out in moments due to the sheer pressure her blood is under. Though that said, even a small amount of axiom lets them pick up and walk away with spaceships if they're feeling particularly audacious. Maybe it's a worthwhile trade. Oh my, I'm Jumpin' Jenny, owner of this repair and restoration shop. How may I help you? The gigantic black and white Spider-Woman asks as she taps around them with a gigantic smile. Large bangs cover her entire face, except for her mouth with tiny fangs poking out between her lips. Well, ma'am, my friends and I are all well finding ourselves a little grounded and immobile. We're looking for personal vehicles, Amadi says, and she claps her hands together in a diagonal method in her glee. Oh, wonderful. I love making a good sale, especially to such good-looking customers. Come. Do any of you know what general type of vehicle you're looking for? I'm looking for an air bike, basically something fast, easy to use, and easy to fix, hopefully with a couple of ports for some larger weapons, Koa says, and Jenny nods a few times. Of course. Right this way, please. We've got all kinds of open cockpit air vehicles, from air spears to zoomers to sky cutters to blast platforms, Jenny explains as she leads them into the building and then a room to the right. All right, first on the left is the sky cutters, and the right's got zoomers. In the distance, we've got air spears and flying platforms. I suppose that with so many body types, thinking there's just one kind of air bike is kind of stupid, Reggie notes as he examines the nearby zoomer. It's a pair of engines with what looks like crash webbing between them and the controls on the front. He looks at the controls, and it's a very simple system with a pair of hollow projectors to show things like speed, altitude, and the state of the engines. Of course, but don't you worry. Jumpin' Jenny makes sure that as many of her vehicles as possible accessible to as many races as possible. After all, it doesn't help the bank to cut off part of your customer base. There has to be a point of diminishing returns. Amadi notes as he pays attention to a sky cutter with its curved blade-like design. The seat is in the interior of the crescent and is well padded. Well, yes, not all base frames suit every generally body shape. My kind are so big that a cutter like that will just be a pain. Smaller and moderate-sized races like your own will find it a wonderful way to get around, but me? Not enough vehicle. Not to mention only specialized versions of any cutters are big enough for something like me or, goddess forbid, a Lydris to ride. Poor girls, so big and strong, but so much more is needed to give them a good life. Well, if it helps narrow things down, I'm looking for something I can modify and toy with on days when I'm off duty and everyone I know is busy, Koa explains. Does that happen often? Jenny asks. Sometimes. We're all troopers, but I'm a fighter and guard more than anything. Reggie, there's an engineer and repairman, and Amadi, there is a researcher and scholar. Koa explains, pointing to everyone in turn. Anyways, the ladies in my life either have their own ways to get around or are small enough to hang on. What do you recommend for that? Oh, a flying platform, most definitely. The ones I've got here have extending standing space so you can actually bring a lot of cargo and passengers despite it being a very small vehicle. This way. They follow the scuttling woman that seems to be veering between a crab and a spider with the way she moves. Koa in particular is ready to run should she turn sideways and sprint. The flying platforms are large hexagons on struts with a casing to hide and protect the interior components. They have what seems to be a podium filled with controls, including a joystick, and otherwise fairly plain. A small indent on the side lets Koa step up onto the platform, and he looks over the whole thing. This looks custom. A lot of big companies like to have their own input set up, even if it's really, really stupid. Jumpin' Jenny doesn't let that happen in her shop. It's not even hard. They just keep putting all the controls in weird places. Stick controls where the whole thing is moving. The buttons raises and lower things like height and speed. It all comes with a manual for ease of use, and these ones here extend and retract the extensions of the platform. Something like this then? Koa asks, and he presses a button and the platform extends in all directions. Exactly like that. A flying platform is very easy to use, very practical, and very, very fast. These controls here are for the air barriers so that you don't get swept off the top. Jump in, Jenny explains as Amadi and Reggie wander off. Reggie pops the hood and looks into the anti-gravity and thrust portions of a platform as Amadi starts looking over an air spear. Out of all the vehicles, the air spear is the most dangerous looking one. You just climb onto it and recline as the wedge of engines in front of you pull you forward with insane speeds. Between it and the zoomer, it looks like one of the two most streamlined racing beasts. The cutter seems like something for entertainment, and the platform seems almost luxurious. Koa seems to agree because after some fiddling, he deactivates the platform and comes over to examine the spear that Amadi is looking through. If you're going for obnoxious or aggressive, this one seems to have you covered. I'm looking to be a pain in the ass that gets there fast, not flying skeet. Koa jokes. Skeet? Jenny asks. Kinda clay discs that are shot for target practice. I was just joking anyways. I'm looking for speed and weapon ports. We've had some bad run-ins with the less friendly sorts, and to be honest, we both attract and tend to look for trouble. So getting the hell out of danger and having the power of some serious cannons would be useful. If it's sheer speed, you're going for the zoomers, and air spears are best. If you want something more stable to use as a weapons platform, then the platform, ironically enough, can't be beaten. The middle ground is the crescent. I'll go for speed, so that leaves me between a spear and a zoomer. Do you see yourself carrying a lot of supplies or friends around? If so, the zoomer is better. If you want more protection than carrying room, you should get the air spear. Koa thinks on things before looking back and forth between the two. Looks like I'm going with a zoomer. A small, agile thing like this. If it gets hit, and armor isn't going to help. Right. Well, for a first-time zoomer buyer, then what you should be looking for is the Bastion Corporation. These ones are about as tough as they come and very, very easy to fix. Not the absolute fastest, but you can also modify them without too many problems. Bastion Hun, what else do they make? Koa asks. Oh, a great deal. The Bastion Corporation is a major exporter out of the Meccan Reach. Like most things out of the Reach, their products are reliable and powerful. Jenny explains, and Koa nods as he looks the zoomer up and down before nodding. This'll work, Koa remarks with a smile. Amadi, you said you had the funds, right? I do. Here's your share, Amadi says as he passes 2 J-Hest coins to Koa. Are these? They're enough now. If you like what you see, I can release this one, and you can take it for a little test flight. Jenny offers, and she pulls out a small device. She points at the zoomer, and it powers up fully. 30 minutes until it comes back automatically. Have fun, big man. Koa climbs into the harness, and the entire vehicle easily rises off the ground. Moments later, he's soaring out of the building. Now then, that's one customer taken care of. How can I help both of you? Jenny asks with a smile. I've got a fair few wives without personal transport. Not to mention I'd like to be able to get around and bring a bunch of friends. What do you have that has a lot of seating room? Oh, well, of course. I've got a wonderful variety of vehicles that are just perfect for the family. If they're of a smaller race like the Goobs, Metak, or Cobes, then you can fit in the whole extended family. If not, then you can get at least a third for a race more around your size. Of course, if you're into bigger girls like me, then maybe 10 at most from one of these. How big is this vehicle? Amadi asks. The buyout contracts and bids on public transportation run fast and loose. If a company loses, they might try again next cycle. But if there's a major breakthrough in the technology, they dump all their buses that are in anything less than perfect condition. All in all, it's a wonderful opportunity for a repair girl like me, Jenny explains as she leads Amadi and Reggie into another part of her business. She could tell this would be a day of excellent sales, and the questions they asked. Oh, the questions they asked spoke volumes about humans and humanity as a whole. Volumes that would sell even higher to the right clients.